Hey guys, and welcome to another YouTube video of us. It's been a long time and finally we're back here in our new space, and today's first YouTube video is about the most important part of our body, what we can actually train and spend time in improving its health and longevity, and it's our spine. So let's dive into the video.
Before we give you some practical advice for your spinal health and longevity, we want to explain why we think that it is so important. So we oftentimes have so many goals, whether they're fitness related, weight loss related, strength related, or even mobility related. We have a lot of goals that we want to accomplish. And especially for the mobility part, we usually focus on our hips because they feel so tight. We focus on our shoulders because we want to get into handstand, we want to have a nice overhead position, these kind of things. But we often neglect our spine and the importance of our spine. And it is not only if we want to do back bends or be really bendy that we want to train our spine. We actually want to train our spine for a lot or a bunch of reasons.
The most important reason, probably what a lot of people maybe don't know, is in our spine, there's the spinal cord, right? The spinal cord not only receives a movement and information from our joints and from our muscles, and it has to decide whether these information have to go into our brain. Then our brain has to transcript them, translate them, and then decide what to do, what action to take. And then this information goes right through our spine, in our spinal cord, and then the spinal cord sends these information out. So it's very important, and it should be the most important reason why we need to take more care about our articular health and function of our spine, so that our the information our spinal cord gets really can get fast to our brain and can get back fast from our brain to our spinal cord to then be sent out to our joints and our limbs, right? So the articular health and function is the most important part to protect and to take care of the health of this spinal cord and the spinal information. So guys, the exercises we're going to show you now are really focused on getting better spinal segmentation, because you have to be aware of that your spine has 24 different joints, and it's not just one block, right? So we have to make sure that each individual joint has the ability, or keeps the ability, to move independently from the joint below or above. So we have to make sure the muscles surrounding our spine are strong in their end ranges, flexion and extension, especially flexion and extension, as it's the main function of our spine, before we then take care of rotational and lateral flexion. So therefore, we're going to show you some exercises that really are focused on the strength of your spine. So guys, the first exercise we're going to talk about is about your T-spine and strengthening your T-spine. Okay, a lot of people have a sedentary lifestyle nowadays, and therefore we have to strengthen the main function, the fundamental function of flexion of our spine, and strengthen this position so that when we are in this rounded, seated upper back position a lot of the time throughout the day, then we make sure that our T-spine is also strong in this position, and that is not just this lasting spinal position for the rest of our lives, so that we actually can move in and out of that flexion and are strong, right? So we're gonna have this set up here with a 20 kilo kettlebell here, and let's grab this kettlebell. Exactly, we'll grab it. You can either grab it so that kettlebell is facing forward or in a normal position. Hip width apart stance, and from this position we try to think of Jefferson curl, so segmenting first our spine from neck down until we reach the end of our T-spine without rounding our back, and make sure to have this PPT all the time engaged so that we take off our lumbar spine here. So we are here in this stretch position. You should already feel a good and deep stretching, flexing sensation right here. So when you're here in this position, we stay here for about 30 seconds, maybe to 1 minute, depending on how really tight you feel or how good this feels for you, right? And then we're gonna decide to, or we're gonna choose isometrics to start strengthening our position here in this end range T-spine flexion. So we're gonna take a deep breath and we're gonna think of pushing that T-spine, that sternum, out here against my hand, against my fingers, up to the ceiling. So you actually try to fight against the weight that is pulling you down and push everything you have here right in my hand. So you fight for more flexion, right? And you're gonna do that for 15 to 30 seconds. Then, right after it, you can relax, curl up, take 3 to 4 to 5 deep breaths and inhalations, and then go back into the position, go into a 15 to 30 second stretch, passive stretch, and then you're gonna ramp up this isometric. Again, PPT, don't forget about it here. Go into max flex position, and after 15 seconds, let's pretend 15 seconds is over, you build up strength, ramp up, you're crazy, max isometric contraction, push against the fingers here, against the ceiling. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, slowly relax, curl up, and then you can repeat it maybe 2 to 3 more times, or if you already feel quite fatigued, you can maybe take a break and go for 2 or 3 more sets of these. So this is the first introduction to T-spine flexion strength.
Okay, now we're going to show you a spinal segmentation version in which we're using a load. So this is basically a modified Jefferson curl. So we're getting into a seated position. In this case, we're using a bench and some dumbbells. You have the dumbbells in a suitcase position, or in a suitcase, position, basically. One really important thing is that because we're adding a load here, it is basically a loaded spinal segmentation. If you haven't done spinal segmentation before, then we really recommend you to do spinal segmentation without any kind of load in a quarter position, just to get some awareness of how to move your spine into flexion and extension without any kind of added load. Now here, we're starting in that nice neutral spine, and we're starting by bringing our chin towards our chest. So we want to get that nice cervical spine segmentation into flexion, and then we slowly get into flexion of our thoracic spine. So really think of curling up each vertebra at a time as you go into as much spinal flexion as you can. Really think of a wave just traveling down your spine or your vertebrae until you get into as much flexion of your spine as you can. And now when we reach that bottom position, we want to start with the lowest part of your lumbar spine, so really that bottom part of your lower back, to curl up again, basically reverse that movement until you're back into that nice neutral spine. So as you can see, we're only working on flexion here. And when we go through a spinal segmentation in a quarter position, we work on flexion and extension. So in this case here, we're working on a loaded spinal flexion, curling into spinal flexion and getting out of spinal flexion. Time to focus on spinal extension. So for this one, we're going to get into a prone lying position, and we're going to show you 2 different exercises or drills that you can do to strengthen the extension of your spine, which is a position that most of us don't spend a lot of time in anymore. So if you have something really great, if you can walk your feet somewhere. If not, don't worry about it. So for the first one, we basically do spinal segmentation solely for extension. So we start in that neutral spine here. You can engage your glutes a little bit because we don't want to work too much with our posterior chain or with our glutes. We only want to work with our spine here, but you can keep it engaged just a little bit. So we want to start with our neck going into extension. So the entire torso stays on the ground, as we'll slowly get into extension with the neck. Now we want to think of segmenting the thoracic spine, so slowly lifting our chest off the ground as much as we can. And remember, each vertebra at a time, and work our way down to our lumbar spine. Now, if you don't have a lot of strength, because you don't spend a lot of time in extension, then don't worry about it. You can take your hands, place them in front of you, and assist you in going into spinal extension. A really important part, especially for people who do back bends, is that especially when we get into that max extension, a lot of the time what happens is that only the lower vertebrae are doing the work. So really try to find extension throughout your entire spine. So not only think, oh, I want to go into as much extension as I can by lifting my back up as much as possible, but really try to think of pushing your chest out. So push your chest out, push this part out. Everything wants to be pushed away and out, and not only the lumbar spine, okay? So really want to think of max extension of the entire spine. So can you come back into that top position again? Now from here, when we go back down, we really start at the lowest part of the lumbar spine, slowly sinking into the ground. Again, you can assist yourself using your hands, or you can do it without your hands if you have really good control and strength already. And then you really want to find the floor slowly, thinking of each vertebra sinking into the ground. And then once your torso touches the ground, you will start with your neck curling back into that flexion, or into that neutral spine. Okay? Now this is the segmentation. We can also do passive range holds, strengthening specific parts of our spine. So we can start in that, with a less lumbar spine extension and more thoracic spine extension. Really think of pushing the chest out towards the ground and really fight for that extension and hold this position. You can hold it for 5 seconds, for 10 seconds, hands back on the ground, build tension, deep breath in, find that extension, slowly let go of your hands and hold that position. Really think of chest out, nice extension of the spine, release the tension, hands back on the ground. Now you can come into more extension of the spine, same thing. Build the tension, deep breath in, slowly let go of the hands and hold the position. 3, 2, 1, release. Nice. And this is, you can play really in a lot of different positions. We can try to come up a little bit more. Really important here, we do want to keep our hip bones on the ground so that we're not going into a lot of spine, hip extension, really working on that spine. So hips on the ground, deep breath in, slowly let go of the hands and try to hold that position. 3, 2, 1, and release the tension. Nice, so you can see, you can work in that T-spine extension, TL junction, L-spine, like lumbar spine, a little bit less lumbar spine, a little bit more T-spine. There are tons of positions. You have so many vertebrae, so you can work basically in each still position that you can think of, trying to strengthen your spine in each and every single of these positions. So we recommend starting with maybe 5 to 8 seconds, maybe 5 second isometric holds, passive range holds, then work your way up to 10 seconds. And try to get as many positions of your spine as possible to strengthen it. And if you know that you're really weak in one specific position, make sure to pay a little bit more attention to that part.
Guys, the last exercise we're going to talk about today, because it's already such a long video, but it's so important topic, is we're going to try to strengthen and go through the full range of motion here with the T-spine lumbar cars. And we have several options here, of course. And first we can do it with our own body weight if we want to hug ourselves. Then we can use a great tool such as the yoga block to create a little bit more body tension in our upper body. Or we can use, which we're going to show you after, additional weight to really load our spine in this full range of motion even more. So let's grab a yoga block, for example, because it's a very good, great exercise tool, a way to get more tension, create more tension, especially if you're new to this. Then we're going to go a little bit wider than hip width apart stance, strong glutes, a little bit of tension in your core here, press the yoga block together. Take a deep breath in, so you really create a nice, solid overall body tension. And with that tension, we try to flex forward. So try to go to the side so they see the flexion happening. And if you reach your max flexion, then we try to rotate our spine, either to the left or to the right with max rotation. And if you found max rotation, you're gonna laterally tilt that shoulder closer to the ground. Don't lose your stance, don't move your pelvis here. When you found lateral flexion, then you go back, thinking of a big circle, pushing that sternum up to the ceiling, back into that lateral flexion, then rotate in again, and come back forward into that starting position, and then you can reverse it. You have two options here for your cervical spine. I know this is a tough thing because we want to focus on T-spine and lumbar spine. Most like the T-spine, of course, the lumbar spine will move in this, but we try to mitigate it as little as possible. But the cervical spine has two options. Either we can keep it completely straight with it, which is the hardest part because our cervical spine tends to move into extension or lateral flexion, or you can keep it, as Leslie did, in that flexed position, which is a lot easier, especially for beginners if you're new to this exercise. So let's show us one more difficult rep with this 10 kilo slam ball here. So let's do it. Core tension, engage glutes, deep breath in, slowly go forward into that flexed position. Hold that tension, max flexion, rotate in, beautiful. You see only her torso rotates, nothing happens down here. And then flex, extend, really push that T-spine up to the ceiling. Flex to the side, if you reach max flexion, rotate in, beautiful, and come forward again. Nice. And you can reverse it then in the other direction, or no, let's keep it that way. And that's a very great way to not only finish your spinal mobility session, but also, as I already mentioned in the beginning, go through and really train the full range of motion, because we not only have this extension and flexion, which is the fundamental function of the spine, but we can't forget the lateral flexion and the rotational capacity our spine has, because we always have to think we need to train also our weakest links, right? We will most likely get injured or hurt in our weakest areas, and so we need to train that flexion and lateral flexion and rotation as well. Okay, guys? So if you want to dive even deeper into mobility training or get an individualized coaching or program and work with us, then click the link for your free call in the description below. Contact us. We are here for you. We're happy to help you, and let's see you in the next one.